Got it.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me.
The camera.
Just block the people in the background. Yeah, there you go. Adam, it's the recording.
All right, I think we're ready to go. Ron is ready to go. Good morning. Over a decade ago, a bipartisan congressional committee investigated the 9/11 attacks and wrote a report. 28 pages from that report have never been released to the public. We're here today to call for a release of those 28 pages. The survivors, civilian heroes, and families of the victims of September 11 terrorist attacks, some of whom are here today, deserve the full truth. I'm not alone in calling for the pages to be released. Over the 13 years since the report was completed, many have called for the release of these records, including former heads of the CIA, the Republican and Democrat heads of the 9/11 Commission. Even the Saudi government continues to favor the release of these pages. The co-sponsors of my bill are Senator Ron Wyden and Kirsten Gillibrand. We all are calling today for the release of these 28 pages. We are joined by bipartisan members of the House who have a similar bill. I especially want to thank my friend Walter Jones for encouraging me to learn more about this issue. 15 of the 19 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. While their nationality alone does not constitute any wrongdoing by the Saudi government, information that has been revealed over the years does raise questions about their support and whether their support might have been provided to these al-Qaeda terrorists. For example, according to Senator Graham's book, 2 of the hijackers appear to have been aided by another Saudi national in the U.S., who in turn appears to have been supported by and worked with the Saudi government. We cannot let page after page of blanked out documents be obscured behind a veil, leading these families to wonder if there is additional information surrounding these horrible acts. We owe it to these families, and we cannot let this lack of transparency erode trust and make us feel less secure. Therefore, I, along with Senators Wyden and Gillibrand, have submitted Senate Bill 1471 to declassify these pages. I also intend to offer this bill as an amendment next week to the Defense Authorization Bill. Now I'd like to introduce Senator Bob Graham, who led this congressional inquiry, who can tell us more about the development of the report and the bipartisan support for releasing these missing 28 pages.
Thank you, Senator, and thanks for your colleagues and those in the House who have already introduced this important legislation calling for the release of the 28 pages. The 28 pages in a report of over 800 pages go to the question of who financed 9/11, and they point a strong finger at Saudi Arabia. Since the final report that came through the classification process in the summer of 2003, these 28 pages have been withheld from the American people. In my opinion, yes, the 28 pages are very important and will, I think, inform the American people, and in so doing will cause the American government to reconsider the nature of our relationship with Saudi Arabia. But beyond that, these are emblematic of a pattern of withholding information unnecessarily and to the detriment of the American people. As an example, one piece of information which was secured by the work of the victims, those who have suffered the most from 9/11, the sons, daughters, wives, husbands of those who were killed on that tragic day. Their efforts have resulted in a trickle of information that better allow us to understand the full scope of 9/11. One of those requests was to the United States Treasury Department, and it related to a Saudi-based foundation which had a reputation of having been a significant financier of Al-Qaeda. The Department of Justice responded with a report on the information which it had relative to this foundation. Let me just show you what the report said. That is what the United States Department of Treasury felt the American people should know about an organization which may well have been a significant reason for 9/11 to have occurred. This is an important issue that goes to the fundamental three words of American democracy. We, the people. This government is the government of the people. The people deserve the respect to know what their government is doing in their name. The passage of this legislation would be an important step towards realizing that respect to the people of America. I'd like to again thank Senator Paul and his co-sponsors in the Senate, and to call upon Congressman Walter Jones, who has been the leader of this effort in the U.S. House of Representatives.
Senator, thank you very much. I'm going to speak, then introduce my two partners on the House side, which would be Steve Lynch from Massachusetts and also Thomas Massey from Kentucky. And then after they make their remarks, I will come up and introduce the family member. And after the family speak, then we will open this up for questions. I want to thank Senator Graham for being the driving force of this effort for the truth. What got me started was a book that he wrote years ago about terrorism and the influence of certain Middle East countries. I bought the book, I read it, I called him, did not know him. We had a great conversation, and I said, Senator, the truth does matter to the families, but also the American people. I'd like to get involved. So we had a conversation. Then I went down on the House side. You have to make a request of the Intel Committee, and read the 28 pages. About the same time, my friend Stephen Lynch, who will speak next, also read the 28 pages. It's a classified setting. Shortly after that, then Thomas Massey read the 28 pages. And from that, we have been working together to get more and more members on the House side to join in this effort to give the American people the truth. The families deserve it, and the American people deserve it. To my dear friend, Senator Rand Paul, I want to thank you for taking the lead in the Senate and getting your colleague, Senator Wyden and Gillibrand, to join you in this effort. One of my biggest disappointments has been on the House side. I can't speak for the Senate side, but we have gotten very few members in the House side from the areas that were impacted by 9/11 to join us in our House Resolution 14, which simply calls on the President of the United States to keep his word to the 9/11 families and declassify this information. There is nothing in this information, as already been spoken to by Senator Graham and Senator Paul, about national security. It's about relationships. The families deserve, their pain has been with them for so long. They deserve the truth. And certainly the American people deserve the truth, or there is no hope for America. So with that, I would like to introduce my good friend from the state of Massachusetts, Congressman Stephen Lynch. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I especially want to thank the 9/11 families who are here today to add such urgency to this effort. Let me thank Senator Rand Paul for his energy on this and for bringing a sharper focus to this issue. And I thank your colleagues, Senator Wyden and Senator Gillibrand, for joining you. I'd also like to make special notice of Senator Bob Graham, because back when very few people were focusing on this, Bob, having been part of the original investigation, really singled out the need to make all this information available to the public. In our request for full transparency, we're joined today by families of the victims of these tragic attacks on September 11th. Our nation suffered a tremendous loss, and we were all devastated by the horrific events of 9/11. However, these men and women, these families behind me, their families and their lives were forever altered that day. And we deeply appreciate their persistence in seeking the truth about their families. Our commitment to one another as citizens in a society that values freedom and justice demands that we hold accountable those who aided and abetted the savage attacks on our homeland and the murder of thousands of innocent Americans. When that fundamental duty to protect American citizens has been breached, it is not enough to say we will never forget. We need to do more. The military and civilian personnel at the Pentagon, the first responders and office workers in New York, the passengers and crew of those hijacked planes, and all those families whose hearts still ache. We owe it to them to provide a full accounting of the events and circumstances surrounding the tragedy of 9/11. It is appalling. It is a disgrace to a country that prides itself on transparency and truth and justice that these 28 pages of this bipartisan, bicameral congressional inquiry remains classified after 14 years from those terrorist attacks. This was not a mere redaction, as Senator Graham has noted. It is not just the mere deletion of a few words here or there, which is typical in these reports. This is a full-fledged blackout of information of these 28 pages. They have been excised from that otherwise informative report. 28 pages in length. It may have been a matter of national security to secure those pages back in 2002 with the urgency and the fear of vengeance at that time. But it is long since time that we made these reports public. Transparency in government is vital to our democracy. Enough time has passed that we can digest this information without worrying about the visceral passions and security implications that existed in the days immediately following those attacks. These families and our nation experienced a profound and personal loss, and these families and our nation deserve to have their questions answered. The declassification of the 28 pages is an important step towards answering these questions. After personally and carefully reviewing these 28 pages, I believe, and Walter and all the other legislators that have read these feel confident that these can be declassified without harming U.S. intelligence sources or methods. Indeed, I firmly believe that the information contained in these 28 pages will better inform our national security protocols and will better inform our anti-terrorism policy going forward. So I urge my colleagues in the House and Senate, I share the frustration with some members of the House who have not read the report and have not signed on to this bill that Walter Jones has articulated. But we need to get this done. We hope many of our colleagues will work with us to ensure that these pages are declassified in 2015. And again, I want to thank Senator Rand Paul for bringing this sharp attention, sharp focus on this issue today. And I want to thank these families behind me for their patriotism and their quest for justice on behalf of their loved ones. Thank you.
Congressman Massey from Kentucky. I want to thank Congressman Jones for drawing my attention to this issue, and I want to make 3 points. First and foremost, the point for the families. The information in these 28 pages, I think, establishes a chain of liability that I think is important for the families in receiving justice, and I first and foremost hope these pages are released for the families of the victims. Secondly, this is a bipartisan issue. Unfortunately, it's bipartisan in 2 regards. You have Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate who are leading the charge to release these pages, but you have 2 presidents, either of which could have released them. The Republican president, who is the reason that they are secret, and a Democrat president who keeps them secret. Tomorrow, or even this evening, the president could release these pages. Our resolution merely urges him to do that. And it's completely within his authority to release these pages, and I want to make that point today. Finally, nearly not a day goes by in Congress where we aren't discussing about how to prevent another 9/11, whether it's in the discussion about whether we should collect Americans' phone records, whether we should look at the content of their emails, to what degree we need more intelligence gathering capabilities. That's all in the name of preventing another 9/11. Whether we should get involved in Syria, to what degree we should be concerned about Yemen, what to do about Iraq. All of these are colored by the question, how to prevent another 9/11. Some of the best intelligence we have is in these 28 pages, and most of our colleagues in the House have not read them, yet they're pretending to be informed on these issues and having a discussion about how to prevent the next 9/11, yet turning a blind eye to these 28 pages. And that is another important reason why they need to be released. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce Terry Strada. Her husband lost his life in the 9/11 attack. Terry will introduce her children who are here, and then other members of the families who felt the pain of 9/11, that to believe that the truth of 9/11 will help them as they move forward with their life. So with that, Terry, thank you so much for all you and everyone here today, and those who are not standing with us have done so much to bring the truth to the American people. Terry, come forward, please.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Terry Strada. I am the National Chair of 9/11 Families and Survivors United for Justice Against Terrorism. I'm here today with my 3 children. Thomas, can you come in? Can you make it through? You kind of got caught up in the... Thank you. Thomas, Caitlin, and Justin. I am also joined by some family members and survivors from 9/11. With us today we have Abraham Scott. He lost his wife Janice in the Pentagon. We have Mary Ellen Salamone and her son Aiden Salamone. They lost their husband and father on 9/11. Next we have Emmanuel Lipscomb. He is a true treasure. He is a civilian hero. He saved many lives on 9/11 down at the World Trade Center. We also have Matt Salito. Matt lost his son in the North Tower of the World Trade Centers. And we have with us today a New York fireman survivor, Ray Hayden. He is with us as well. Thank you all for coming and being here with us today. Many people believe our suffering is in the past and future attacks are diminished. Neither is true. Our loss is for the rest of our lives, and so is the real threat of another terrorist attack. We are forever united in our grief and our commitment for a safer nation. I have been outspoken on the of terrorism financing for several years now because I have lived through the devastation of terrorism and continue to live with the battle scars today. I lost my husband, Tom Strada, dozens of dear friends and colleagues on 9/11. Every single person that Tom worked with was killed that day. If I had had the strength, I could have easily attended well over 25 services and funerals. To this day, we have not been able to lay my husband to rest because he has never been identified and returned to us for a proper burial. So yes, like all of the members here today, I know a lot about the pain and suffering of terrorism. For the sake of the American people, not just those who suffered injuries or had their families ripped apart, but for all Americans, the entire truth about who attacked us on 9/11 needs to be aired. We cannot properly secure our future if we remain kept in the dark about what foreign country or countries helped facilitate the attacks. And yet, here we stand, more than a decade later, despite the availability of additional information on the subject, secreted in a guarded vault beneath the Capitol, only steps away from where we stand today. We remain almost universally uninformed. Based on the little we do know about what is in those 28 pages, we are confident that declassifying them will prove to be critical to unraveling the role the Saudis played in the worst terrorist attack on American soil. There is nothing conspiratorial or hidden about the ultimate responsibility for the horrific terrorist attack that led to the incineration of almost nearly 3,000 souls. Nearly every significant element that led to the murderous attacks of September 11th points to Saudi Arabia. Bin Laden was a member of the Saudi elite. His father and much of his family have been close associates of the family monarchy for decades. 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi nationals. The very ideology, Wahhabism, that set the attacks in motion has thrived in Saudi Arabia since the inception of the kingdom. And when the money trail is followed, it almost always leads back to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is influential because its oil and vast wealth make it powerful in the Middle East and beyond. Money is the lifeblood of terrorism. Without money, 9/11 never could have happened, ever. But it is not financial resources alone that make it such an important player in the reign of terror we are witnessing worldwide. The ideology of Al-Qaeda and ISIS draws a great deal from Wahhabism, often referred to as radical Islam, and is now taking over mainstream Sunni Islam. Many banks, charities, and wealthy Saudis are not only responsible for financing terrorist organizations, but in one country after another, they are putting up the money that makes possible the training and the radicalizing of individuals and spreading their violence-inspiring Wahhabi brand of ideology into far-reaching places around the globe, including here in the United States. All people flocking to join ISIS are not necessarily doing so because of lack of economic opportunities. On the contrary, many of the new recruits are well-educated and economically secure. It is the fanatical ideology that they have given their lives to. The expression of their fanaticism and terrorism is a major threat to our and other people's safety. The war on terror cannot be won until we hold accountable the terrorist financiers for their role in propagating that violent ideology and for facilitating terrorists and terrorist organizations that are slaughtering innocent people in the Middle East and vowing to kill us and destroy us here at home. You should not have to take my word for it. Let's look at what is in the 28 pages. Since these highly respected government officials have repeatedly said that the release of the 28 pages poses no threat to national security, we believe the hidden details of that chapter should be not kept a secret, but should be made accessible to inform all of our views. My husband's murder and the murder of all our loved ones cannot be the price we pay for doing business with the Saudis, nor should that price ever be repeated, especially simply for the sake of our so-called friendship. On behalf of all 9/11 family members and survivors, I thank Senator Paul for introducing this vital piece of legislation, former Senator Bob Graham for his tenacious dedication in pursuing the truth, and also to Massey and Congressman Lynch and Congressman Jones. And we call on all members of the Senate and the House to please join us here today in our request to declassify the 28 pages. Without the truth, there is no accountability. Without accountability, there is no justice. Without any of these, we can never be safe. And now I'd like to introduce my daughter, Caitlin.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Strada. On September 11, 2001, along with thousands of people across America, my father left for work. Only tragically, he never came home. By 2 o'clock, Terrorists had taken his life and the lives of nearly 3,000 other innocent men, women, and children. My father was a successful bond broker, a trusted friend, but most importantly, he was a great family man. We missed him every day. My brother Thomas was 7, I was 4, and my brother Justin was just 4 days old on September 11th. On that horrific day, our lives were painfully changed forever. When the smoke cleared and the fires were extinguished, nearly 3,000 children were left mourning the death of their murdered parent. We were young and innocent without a care in the world one day, and then terrified and heartbroken the next. We experienced the hell, fear, and trauma of terrorism firsthand. We are the children of 9/11. I stand here today with my family and my extended 9/11 family before all of you, asking our president to declassify these 28 pages which hold the truth about who was responsible for our pain and suffering. Who helped Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda carry out the heinous attacks on our country that took our parents away? That question haunts me and will continue to haunt me until the 28 pages are declassified. Children should not have their hearts broken, their dreams destroyed, and their lives shattered. When our father was killed, something was taken from all of us, our innocence and our trust. 9/11 children are growing up in a world where we can't trust our own government because too many truths remain hidden about who is ultimately responsible for the murder of our parents. Please, Mr. President, on behalf of all the children who are growing up without a parent because of terrorism, help us regain some of what we lost. We respectfully ask that you please declassify the 28 pages and allow us and the world to know the truth. Thank you.
Abraham, did you say something?
I'm not getting any younger. Good morning, everyone. I'm not here this morning to beat up on you about President Obama promise or Senator Paul or Congressman Jones promise to declassify the 28 pages. I'm here this morning to let you know that each morning and night I ask the Lord to allow me to live long enough so if one of my 2 granddaughters, Angelise, who is 8 years old, and Nari, who is 20 months old, should ask me, Grandpa, what was significant about 2015? And I'm hoping that I'll be able to tell them that this Congress, as well as President Obama, passed a law that declassified those 28 pages. I just hope and pray that I will see that day. And I'm also concerned about other family members who are up in age and having some trials and tribulations in different ways in terms of Bill Dahl and Rosemary Dillard. I'm hoping that this will come to reality before we all pass. This is not a political thing, not to approve, but it's the right thing. It's the right thing to do. I beseech both Congress as well as President Obama to please pass this bill. And I want to thank Senator Paul, Congressman Massey, Congressman Jones, and the rest of the congressional people who support this proposal. And I wish you Godspeed, and hopefully next time we meet, at least Congress will have passed an appropriation that will then go to President Obama for signature. Thank you. Godspeed and God bless.
We'll be happy to take a few questions. Yes.
Thank you, sir. My name is Barry Kissel. No, please. Pardon me? Barry Kissel. My name is Barry Kissel. Oh, sure. Oh, thank you, Rick. Bob Graham has, on a number of occasions, been more specific about how this money was being funneled. He refers to the embassy of Saudi Arabia. My question to you, or Bob Graham for that matter, is Senator Graham aware of who was the ambassador to Saudi Arabia at the time of this involvement on the part of the embassy?
Prince Bandar.
Right, Prince Bandar. Now, is this the same fellow who George W. nicknamed Bandar Bush because of his long-standing affiliations with Bush? Is it the same one?
I only know of one Prince Bandar.
One other question. If Senator Paul wanted to, couldn't he get up on the floor of the Senate and read these 28 pages into the record with impunity?
I would rather you direct that question to Senator Paul.
We're all familiar with it. Senator Paul,
Those are the rules. Next question.
Let's do that. Great idea.
Why don't we go right here?
Yes, I wanted to ask Senator Graham, do you consider running for president? Because potential,
We need some competition.
you could appear live in the Democratic debate on national TV and make remarks about this problem.
Well, first, I certainly understand your sense that there's been a paucity of candidates thus far. We have more to step forward. Two, I think there will be someone in those debates who might have a question or response that would touch the 28 pages. I don't think it's necessary to have a second one. And I am enjoying retiring.
Senator Paul, you
Announce who you're with too, I think.
yes, Wayne Madison, WMR. You mentioned that there was some support from Saudi Arabia for declassification of these pages. And King Salman was the governor of Riyadh before 9/11, and there were reports that he facilitated Al-Qaeda members passing through Riyadh on their way to Pakistan and Afghanistan with money, logistics, travel support. So would you be included amongst these Saudis who are in favor of releasing?
I don't have in front of me the quote, but it's from someone in their government. I think within the last year, there has been a quote, plus quotes in the past, in support of releasing the 28 pages. Yes, in the back. Yes.
Question for Senator Graham. I understand that since the issue of the 28 pages, that there's been new revelations in Florida that further tend to point towards the role of the Saudis, and that there's action by a federal judge, and there's been some documents released, and you've suggested that the situation out in San Diego and now in Sarasota, Florida, begs the question of other locations, Herndon, Virginia, Patterson, New Jersey, all of the places. Could you elaborate on that a bit, please?
Well, the hijackers lived in a few locations for an extended period of time in some numbers. We know a lot about San Diego. We are learning about Sarasota, but encountering very similar obstacles to getting access to information there. I do not know what the status of investigations in places like Herndon or Great Falls or Patterson have been. Whether there were investigations, I assume there were, what results that they reached. To me, there are two basic questions. One, the one that Porter Goss, the co-chair of the 9/11 Congressional Joint Inquiry, has asked, if these 28 pages are going to be withheld, what is the reason they're going to be withheld? At least we ought to have a debate over the validity, the strength, the rationale behind the decision not to release. And then if they are released, then the debate will be, what do these pages tell us, and what policy adjustments should we make based on this new reality of the truth of our relation with Saudi Arabia.
Excuse me, I've been asked to introduce a family member who would like to just give a very brief statement, and we will continue with questions after that. So this is Matt Salido.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Matthew T. Salido. My son, Matthew C. Salido, was murdered by terrorists on September 11th. First, I want to thank Senators Paul, Gillibrand, and Wyden for introducing the Transparency for the Families of 9/11 Victims and Survivors Act. It will finally help to close the congressional gap in our 14-year struggle for the whole truth about 9/11. Thank you, Senator Bob Graham, for your extraordinary commitment to all Americans and to us and the truth. We have been fighting this cause up and down the East Coast. And to Representative Jones and Massey, and to my fellow Bostonian, Representative Lynch, for their House Amendment, HR 14. I would also like to thank the media here today. We need you. You are the oxygen that disseminates the story and gives this vital issue life. Please keep it alive in front of all Americans until the 28 pages are declassified. This 14-year cover-up must end now. It must not survive another administration. Today, our members of Congress are making critical foreign policy and national security discussions and decisions in the absence of the information contained in 28 pages because they have never read them. How is this possible? As long as those implicated in the 28 pages are protected via classification, we will be very vulnerable to their treachery, their terrorism, and their war. Just look at what has happened in the Middle East. 14 years on this, they continue with total impunity. Furthermore, those who help them by allowing the shameful cover-up are complicit. Finally, let me remind you that the plane that landed came down in Shanksville. 40 souls took that plane down. Because that plane was coming here, gentlemen and ladies, to Congress. And many more lives would have been taken. And those lives would have been these Congress people. And these people have a right to know where that money came from. Who financed the people to have their lives taken. I would also finally like to thank all the people that put extra hard work in putting all this together. Thank you very much, and please, please, let these people know what is contained in those 28 pages. President, we're putting an olive branch after you, Mr. President Obama. We're putting an olive branch. We come to you today. Come over to our side, the side of justice. Please. Thank you.
We've got time for about 2 more questions right here.
So a lot of this effort really depends on President Obama, and I'm wondering, Senator Paul, if President Obama stands in the way, will you consider exercising your constitutional right to enter them into the congressional record, as you acknowledge you could do?
We're going to try the normal legislative procedure first and see how it goes. I will bring it up with the president, and I will ask him directly if he will do this. Back here, the young lady.
By declassifying those pages, are you essentially saying that the special relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia should be called off? And then how do you see this impacting your foreign policy in the Middle East?
You know, I see this more as just a search for the truth, and you know, both Republicans and Democrats, those who were in charge of the inquiry, all said at the time they would like to see it released. The heads of the 9/11 Commission also say it should be released. Former heads of CIA have said it should be released. And in our bill, we also allow them to look at it. If they think there's some kind of ongoing investigation where a name or something like that has to be redacted, we give them the freedom to actually redact it. We just don't want the whole thing to be black, like Senator Graham showed us when they do redact it. Got one more for a journal. Take back to you.
Hi, Ayana Berkowska of Al Jazeera English. Just wondering, how does this affect the lawsuit that the 9/11 families have against the Saudi government?
I don't have a good answer. Does anybody want to answer that?
Well, to our lawsuit, how would it affect it? It would just be bringing out the truth that we need, you know, it would just be more proof. We have an abundance of evidence, and this would just be one more piece to that
Thanks, everybody. If you want individual questions, there'll still be some people around you might be able to help. Thanks, sir. Thanks for coming.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.